Hello, good morning, and welcome. My name is Mary Slee with MarySlee.com, and so glad to have you join our community this morning for our very first podcast episode. Been waiting a long time to launch this, so we are excited. And we're going to be kicking off our first podcast with a little mini-series, a 3-part series, that's all about how you can take control of any area of your life. And what a powerful thing that is, because I know that you guys are out there, because I've been there and I've done that, where you have a day where you have things planned, you have full intention of, well, I'm going to hit the gym today, and I'm going to get the laundry done, or I am vowing to never argue with my coworkers again. Just anything that you envision in your life that you are making a commitment to change. And then what happens by the end of the day, it's in the evening, you look back and you wonder, what the hell happened? I wanted to do this, but instead I got this. I feel like my entire day has been wasted. So, how about we learn how to take control of that and stop losing our precious time? Because is that not our most valuable asset? I mean, think about it. If you lose money, you can get that back. If you lose possessions, you can get those back. What happens when your time is wasted? Are those moments ever replenished? No, they're not. So your time is valuable. Your time is precious. So let's learn how we can protect our valuable asset of time and unlock our hidden ability to control any area of our lives. And one of the ways that we can do that is by controlling our state. And this is a great way, a great thing, because athletes actually do this. When you think about an athlete, they constantly have to perform especially when they're competing. They have to perform at a very high level, a very prestigious, very high level of whatever skill that they're involved in order to win the game or win the medal or win the prize. And, some of us might look at that and wonder, all right, so there are days that I say that I'm going to go to the gym, and then I don't feel like going to the gym, so I don't go to the gym. What happens when an athlete, because we all have bad days, we all have off days, that's just how it's going to be. Because we can control our lives to a certain point, but we cannot control what happens around us as far as, circumstances in our environment. So we will have off days, but it's how we handle those is where we learn to control our state. So when we go back to thinking about an athlete, you might look at that and be like, okay, so when an athlete has a bad day, an off day, what do they do? What do they do when they're like, I really just don't feel like playing the football game today. Yeah, I kind of woke up, I'm having some personal issues going on in my life, and I really just don't feel like playing basketball. Well, what they do is they learn to change their state. And they learn to transition into the state that they know that they need to be in for peak performance. Now, we might not be operating our daily lives on the level of an athlete, but we absolutely can. We can actually learn to operate our lives at peak performance as what it means to us in relationship to what we want to achieve and what we want to accomplish. So let's start by this. We've used the word state several times, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what do we mean when we say state. Well, simply in this context, when we make reference to the state that we're in, we're generally talking about the emotions that we're feeling and how we're feeling physically. So, for example, when you are in a social atmosphere and everybody is together and everyone's having a good time, there's music playing, there's food, there's fellowship, a lot of times, people will find themselves in a happy state where their energy level is a little bit up, they are smiling, they're laughing, and you can associate that feeling with emotions and with words and associate that and tie that together to describe that state. So simply that's all we're talking about, is learning how to decipher what state you are in at that particular moment in time, and then learning to control that by deciding what state you want to be in and transitioning from your current state into the state that you want to be in. And this is really powerful because, you're probably thinking right now, why would I want to control my state? You're talking about how I should know what I'm feeling right then and there and what I want to be and moving from one to the next, but why is that even important? Why should we control that? What benefit is going to result and come from utilizing this strategy? Well, you may or may not realize this, but emotion is the number one reason why people do things, why they don't do things, and why they react to certain things. Think about when you make purchases. A lot of times people make purchases on an emotional reaction. Or when somebody says something to you. Ever been in situations, I know I have, where someone has said something to me and my first reaction is to fly off the handle or have some other sort of adverse emotional response to that. And that's because we are driven by emotion. So, basically, when you learn to control your state, you can start to keep your commitments to yourself. You can keep your priorities in order. You can actually start reaching the goals that you set for yourself and start getting results in your life. Start accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. And the cool thing about this is, you're actually going to love this. When you learn to do this and implement this strategy for yourself, you're actually controlling your energy and what you put out into your surroundings. And many times people don't realize that this is what they're doing, but we all have a tendency to react to the energy that is around us. And an example of that would be, you ever hear, or have you ever yourself been in a situation where you're at work and you just cannot stand to work with Susie Joe, because Susie Joe is a crab apple, whines and complains all the time, and nobody wants to work with Susie Joe because she brings everybody down. Her state is emitting a certain type of energy into the environment that people are picking up on, and they don't like it, and they don't want to be around it, and they don't want to work with her because it's described as bringing down the whole team. So if you can learn to control your state, that means you will no longer be the Susie Crabapple or whatever other label or person or persona that you want to put out there, meaning you have the ability to control what emotions and what energy you put into your environment, and the end result is you're going to see a difference in some people and how they react to that energy around you. And the most interesting thing that I love that is so helpful particularly in relationships with your partner, with your spouse, and with your children, is you can learn to pick up on other people's states. And if you pay attention, you can even learn what triggers those specific states for people. So what that means is you can actually start to avoid arguments with your spouse simply by controlling your own states and by knowing the state they're in. And oftentimes, if you get really good at this, you can learn to guide your partner and your children into a different state just by practicing and learning what triggers certain states that you want from them. It's so amazing. It's so awesome. And when you start to see things like this happen, you will notice huge changes in your life. And isn't that what we all want? Don't we want to break these endless cycles of being on the hamster wheel and going round and round and round? Well, I was going to go to the gym, but I had such a crappy day at work. I just want to sit down and tune out my world. Or I had full intentions on having that evening to sit down and relax with my husband and spend a little time together, but the kids were completely out of control, and it shocked my entire evening. Wouldn't it be great if we can change that cycle and actually start having these things that we want and living the life that we're envisioning in our heads? We're going to learn how to do that. Stay tuned, because in the next podcast, because I did say this was a little bit of a mini-series, in the next podcast, we are going to talk about how to learn what state you're in. And then in the next podcast, we're going to talk about how you can transition from one to the next. So stay tuned. We're going to be with you every step of the way. Have a wonderful afternoon. And remember, I do give away a limited number of free coaching sessions. So if you do want a free coaching session, please visit maryslee.com/free coaching session and get yourself booked while there's still spots available. And until then, know that you guys are awesome. Know that you have the ability to change, and we will catch you on the